Hello, my name is Jordan McMillan, and I will be sharing a presentation um, uh, reviewing leptospirosis, angiostrongyliasis, and toxoplasmosis in Hawaii. I'm in the Department of Tropical Medicine, Medical Microbiology, and Pharmacology at the John A. Burns School of Medicine here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So to start, just a review of or introduction of where is Hawaii? Um, this is we are located on an archipelago in the Pacific Ocean, and there are main islands. There are 8 main islands, but this is a very long archipelago with many other islands towards the northwest. Um, a brief history of Hawaii. The overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii was in 1893. It was then annexed under duress in 1898 and became a state and part of the United States in 1959. The approximate population of the state of Hawaii is 1.44 million, with the majority of um, residents residing on Oahu, and then other residents on some of the other main islands like Kauai, Maui, um, and Hawaii Island. Hawaii is located in the tropics, so the length of day, as well as temperature, is really similar throughout the year. The temperature ranges between 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, fairly consistently. And the rainfall pattern is somewhat opposite. It's quite diverse depending on which island you're on, and what time of year. Typically, the winter months, which run from October to March, April, are the rainier months of the year. However, if you look at this graphic from the Department of Geography, this map, they show the highest rainfall does differ on different parts of the island. Typically, it's on the windward side of the islands, which is the northwesterly parts of the island. And this range in rainfall can be from 8 inches of rain to 404 inches. So quite a diverse rainfall pattern. So today I want to discuss 3 infectious diseases that are endemic to Hawaii that could potentially be addressed or are currently being addressed using a One Health approach. So the first is leptospirosis. Leptospirosis is caused by pathogenic Leptospira species found in water and soil that are contaminated with urine from infected animals. Angiostrongyliasis, or neuroangiostrongyliasis, when it infects the brain. This is caused by a parasite called Angiostrongylis cantonensis, which the nematode larval stage is found in gastropods, slugs, snails across the state. Toxoplasmosis is caused by Toxoplasma gondii oocysts that are shed from infected cats in their feces, and these oocysts can persist in the environment. And when humans ingest these oocysts, they become infected. So 3 infectious diseases that really are important in Hawaii in that they have negative impacts on both the human and animal populations, but also persistence within the environment, really make us think about how we can utilize a One Health approach, or sort of just utilize a One Health perspective to improve our how we are addressing these diseases. So to start, leptospirosis, this bacteria is a spirochete. There is an image here to show you an EM image of a Leptospira species. They have ubiquitous distribution worldwide, and they are found in contaminated water and soil. The way they contaminate water and soil is through the urine of infected animals. These bacteria find themselves in the renal tubules of infected animals. Mainly rodents are They're kind of the maintenance host, the animal reservoir that is particularly important. And so the shedding of these Leptospira into the environment are contributed by rodents, but also other animals that are in the environment as well, including domestic animals and wild animals. Human disease, so humans become infected through exposure to contaminated waters or soil, through bacteria getting ingested or through mucous membranes. And the disease that manifests varies from subclinical disease to a very severe syndrome called Weil's disease, which involves multi-organ infection and has a high mortality rate. It's estimated that 1 million cases occur globally, resulting in about 60,000 deaths. And it was really recognized early on that occupation was a major risk factor for infection. So individuals who have professions that involve exposure in these contaminated waters or soils are at higher risk for infection with Leptospira. So here in Hawaii, we have one of the highest rates of leptospirosis in the United States. From December 2012 to May of 2024, there were approximately 8.94 confirmed cases per 100,000 population, and 69% of those required hospitalization. When we look at the distribution of the case rate across the islands, because Hawaii is very unique in that we are not all connected by one landmass, right? We have 8 main islands with varying climates within each island, but also across the islands as well. You see that the case rates are highest in the north eastern parts of the islands, the windward side of the island. So you can see that here with Ko'olau and Halelea, Ko'olau Loa, Hana, and Hamakua on the Hawaii island. Myalgia, fever, and headache are the most common symptoms in confirmed cases, commonly associated with recreational water activities. There are major serovars that are found on the islands here in Hawaii. Icterohemorrhagiae and Bratislava are the most common in human infection. And so in addition to looking at human infections, researchers have also looked to see what are the major serovars found in the predominant rodent species. So we have mice and rats, but also we have mongoose here in Hawaii. And you can see in this table from a previous study showing the dominant serovars in these different animal reservoirs. So this is the mongoose, this is the mouse, and then here we have the different rat species present in Hawaii. And you can see that it does vary, right, depending on what animal species we're looking at. So we have a lot of players involved. We have our temperate weather system. We have this sort of rainfall diversity across the islands. We have human infection occurring. There are behavioral and occupational components that play a role, but we also have the animal species that are also contributing to the presence of the Leptospira in the environment to begin with. And so in order to address leptospirosis in Hawaii, there are a number of groups that are working to handle different aspects of leptospirosis in Hawaii with the main goal of reducing the number of cases, reducing the morbidity, and as well as potential mortality associated with leptospirosis. So we have the Hawaii Humane Society, which is monitoring animals for disease. We also have the Hawaii Department of Health that is monitoring for human cases. We also have some research groups, including the PATH group out of the School of Life Sciences at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. looking at pathogenic Leptospira detection in feral swine. We do have a lot of feral swine in Hawaii, and so understanding their contribution to Leptospira prevalence in the environment, but also continuing to look at that distribution of Leptospira within our rodent populations and within our waterways. So detecting pathogenic Leptospira in stream water is something that some researchers, including myself, are working on in the Department of Tropical Medicine in collaboration with the PATH group at UH Manoa. And so all of these groups do talk to each other. There is some collaboration that is really starting to gear up a little bit more and has existed in the past to really start to understand Leptospira again and leptospirosis in Hawaii and how we can address and lower these cases, as Hawaii is the second highest, has the second highest rates of leptospirosis in the United States. Next, I'd like to talk about Angiostrongyliasis. Angiostrongyliasis is caused by the parasitic nematode Angiostrongylis cantonensis, more commonly known as the rat lungworm. There is a global distribution of Angiostrongylis cantonensis originating in China, in Canton, China, and spreading across the Pacific, but also is found on the major continents globally. This map, you can see each triangle is showing human cases that have been reported. We also have a shading of different countries that have reported endemic regions or that report the majority of cases annually. So we see Thailand and China have high rates of angiostrongyliasis annually. But cases have occurred in Hawaii, throughout the Caribbean, as well as in Europe. And then there are some other places where we are starting to see the presence of Angiostrongyliasis or Angiostrongylis cantonensis, not necessarily resulting in human infection yet. So that's what this map is showing. Each of these blue and red dots is demonstrating either human or animal cases, because animals can become infected with Angiostrongylis cantonensis as well. And you can see that distribution really aligns with the human distribution, but we see a lot more. And most recently in San Diego, they detected Angiostrongylis cantonensis in some of the animals. I believe it was a wallaby at the San Diego Zoo, as well as some other animals in adjacent areas. Humans are accidental hosts. Following ingestion, the larvae can migrate to the brain and potentially result in eosinophilic meningitis. Symptoms are highly variable, and early diagnosis is very important. However, it is extremely challenging because of these variable symptoms. Headache is the most common symptom, and so there are a lot of differentials involved when a patient comes in with headache, especially with no information that is associated with ingestion of a gastropod, which is particularly important when identifying or trying to identify or differentiate someone with angiostrongyliasis. Here in Hawaii, Angiostrongyliasis is found on all major Hawaiian islands. They are endemic for this parasite. There are 37 terrestrial and freshwater slug and snail species that have been shown to be infected with Angiostrongylis, and this includes some of our native species as well. Infection rate does vary and can be as high as 70%. So if you tested certain slugs and snails, some of them, 70% of those that you tested were positive. What's unique about Angiostrongylis is that, at least the route of infection, is that there are these parentenic hosts or these transport hosts. So here I have a life cycle that was developed specifically for Hawaii to really highlight the unique aspects of transmission that we see here in Hawaii. And so this is a parasite that is maintained between rats and gastropods. Now, the infectious stage, which is the L3 larvae, are found in these gastropods. Parentenic hosts, things like frogs or lizards or crabs, can potentially ingest these infected gastropods and become carriers of the parasite. And so when humans ingest raw or undercooked infected parentenic hosts, we can potentially become infected. Ingestion of raw or undercooked slugs and snails is also one of the major routes of transmission. But also, some of these gastropods, specifically this Parmarian martensi, when it's a juvenile, are found to be highly infected in the state of Hawaii, but also they're really small. And so they can find themselves hidden in fruits and vegetables. And if we are consuming those, we are potentially accidentally ingesting these gastropods, um, uh, which may be infected with Angiostrongyliasis cantonensis. They do get bigger, so this is a nickel. They do get bigger and they can get, as big as like a couple of inches. But the juveniles are the concerning stage. So from January 2014 to October 2025, there were approximately 102 reported cases here in Hawaii. There have been a lot of efforts directed at addressing angiostrongyliasis in the state of Hawaii because we do have one of the highest rates of angiostrongyliasis nationwide. And so the state is doing things about that. And so this is a swim lane map associated with the OSMART approach. It's a mapping technique to identify where groups are interacting with each other and maybe where groups are not interacting with each other where they should. So highlighting the successes and really the gaps for real collaborative and impactful strategies. And so each of these horizontal rows identifies a stakeholder. We have gastropod researchers, rat lungworm researchers, Hawaii Department of Health, Hawaii Environmental Health Services, Hawaii Public Health Association, and policymakers. And each of these lanes has sort of the roles and what these different groups are doing with respect to angiostrongyliasis. And so gastropod researchers are looking at snail and slug populations, identifying species that carry these rat lungworm parasites. And then rat lungworm researchers are also investigating disease transmission and life cycle, and all of these groups are talking to each other or should be talking to each other. And this is also the result of well, let me step back one second. Additionally, the Department of Health is monitoring cases of rat lungworm disease, but also collaborating with research and environmental agencies. Public health agencies are promoting community awareness and education, and policymakers are really collaborating as well, and using their powers to address environmental factors, etc. And so some of the things that have come out of these collaborations and workings include the Governor's Task Force, which was put together in the early 2010s. I believe it was 2016. And they included a number of there was a number of scientists as well as clinicians and researchers to sit on a task force to develop content and address angiostrongyliasis from multiple angles. Some of the results of that work resulted in publications looking at how snails release Angiostrongylisis cantonensis when they're stressed, what types of stressors can cause them to do that. Work out of the Hawaii Department of Agriculture collecting slugs and snails. This is that Parmarian martensi. Also the development of pamphlets and rat cards and information to get out into the community to warn people about rat lungworm disease and inform them of the disease itself. The University of Hawaii Hilo at the College of Pharmacy really led the development of this children's book to distribute to K through 12 school gardens and groups that have school gardens so that they can be aware of rat lungworm disease. We've also written up an outbreak of neuroangiostrongyliasis here in Hawaii, and guidelines, clinical guidelines and therapeutic guidelines have been developed specifically for Hawaii. A number of groups also include the Manoa Angiostrongylis Research Group, where researchers can come together and discuss what they've been doing. The task force no longer exists, but the State of Hawaii Rat Lungworm Advisory Council is sort of its new form, and they are still meeting to discuss what we can do to address angiostrongyliasis. And Hilo Medical Center, which is found on Hawaii Island, where we see the majority of cases of angiostrongyliasis. They have a support group for survivors that has been really crucial for supporting those individuals. Finally, I'd like to discuss toxoplasmosis. Toxoplasmosis is another parasite. It's caused by the protozoan parasite Toxoplasma gondii, which was originally identified in this little guy here, the Tenodactylus gundi, and that's how it got its name, gondii. Felidae or felids, cats, wild and domestic, are the definitive hosts. And so when those cats are infected, they shed millions of oocysts into the environment. They remain in the environment until they become infectious, and humans and animals can become infected following multiple routes, but more commonly it's eating undercooked meat of animals that have these tissue cysts, consuming food or water that's contaminated with cat feces that may contain these oocysts, blood transfusion or organ transplantation, but also transplacentally from mom to fetus. The disease varies from subclinical to mild to severe manifestations, which can include cerebral and ocular toxoplasmosis. Here in Hawaii, we have infection that has been documented in our native bird population, as well as our non-native birds and the feral chickens that are also here in Hawaii, Hawaiian monk seals, as well as humans. There have been detections, serological assays are what have confirmed exposure in feral chickens, which is a really good indicator of environmental presence of toxoplasma, because these chickens are eating off of the floor. And so if we're seeing an increased number of seropositive feral chickens, it may be related to increased exposure within the environment. Native birds are particularly at risk for toxoplasmosis, and toxoplasmosis is the #1 infectious cause of death in the nene goose, which is our state bird. We've also seen toxoplasmosis as the cause of death for a number of Hawaiian monk seals. And then in the state, when we look at humans, the case counts, right? We see a number of cases of toxoplasmosis weekly, according to the MMWR week. And this is out of the Hawaii Department of Health data. So to address toxoplasmosis, you can kind of think of it when you look at the life cycle, what aspects are being addressed by different groups. At the University of Hawaii, we have seroprevalence studies, or we have a seroprevalence and risk factor study that's being done at the John A. Burns School of Medicine. Hawaii Department of Health is doing case reporting, and Kapulani Medical Center for Women and Children is doing congenital toxoplasmosis monitoring as well. The USDA has done some feral swine seroprevalence and more recently has seen an increase in feral swine seroprevalence in the state of Hawaii. NOAA has an interest in looking at toxoplasmosis in marine animals, specifically our monk seals, but also other animals as well are being impacted or can be impacted, like spinner dolphins, which have been infected and a cause of death in those as well. In the state of Hawaii, Hawaii County, there are feeding bans that have gone into place to prevent feeding of feral cats. Also, management of free-roaming cats populations. There are a couple of groups, including a Toxoplasmosis working group and the Nene Research and Conservation Group. The Hawaii Veterinary Medical Association has a Pono Pet Parent Pledge program, and the Hawaiian Humane Society is also involved with cat and animal management. And then when we look at Toxoplasma gondii in the environment, there are a number of groups, including Queens Medical Center, that are interested in looking at the parasite in the environment. So to conclude, leptospirosis, angiostrongyliasis, and toxoplasmosis are endemic in the state of Hawaii. Multidisciplinary teams have been assembled for all three of these diseases, and really past and ongoing efforts to reduce disease transmission include these collaborations between academia, federal and state agencies, and nonprofit organizations. And their continued collaborations or new collaborations are really what's going to drive down the rates of leptospirosis, angiostrongyliasis, and toxoplasmosis in the state of Hawaii. Thank you for listening.